Alright, so here we are recording again. Here I am. Hello. So you've already seen the first set of examples and answers to 2.A, practice A. So I got 3 more examples to go over with you, and the other 2 word problems to go over with you. The word problems on the other hand, a little more involved, a little trickier. So this video should be shorter, but no less important. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to go over these 3 questions first. And again, either using equivalent fractions if we can recognize when that's possible, or we're going to use the division. And again, division is my preference because it works all the time. So we have 7/8 here, and so I'm going to go with division. Didn't mean to move that. And so let's say 7 divided by 8. I decimal point in, throw some zeros on there. Again, my preference is 3 zeros. My decimal point straight up to the quotient line. And then I divide as if they were whole numbers. 8 goes into 7? No. 8 goes into 70? Yes, it does. And it goes 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. Subtract, I get a 6. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 60, 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract, I get a 4. 8 goes into 40, 5 times. And, I subtract, and I get 0. So therefore, 7/8 is the same as 0.875. And since this decimal is a terminating decimal, I actually could have written this as equivalent fractions. The only thing is, my denominator would be 1,000. And not everybody would recognize the fact that 8 is a factor of 1,000. So the division works all the time. Next one, a little trickier, 27/80. And don't forget, if I go fast, you have the luxury to do something at home that you don't have in school, and that's to stop or to slow your teacher down or to rewind your teacher. So 27, my numerator goes on the inside, and on the outside goes my denominator. I'm going to put 400 just because I don't think I'll need them. So 8, and then decimal point goes up to the line. 80 goes into 27? No. 80 goes into 270? Yes. Because 8 goes into 27 3 times, so 80 would go in 270 3 times. That's 240. Subtract, I get 0, and I get a 3, and I bring down my next 0. 80 goes into 300, another 3 times. 3 times 8 is 240. I get a 60. I bring down a 0. 80 goes into 60, or 80 goes into 600 7 times. 560. By the way, if you're not seeing what I'm doing, I'm kind of ignoring my 0 here, and I ignore this number here, and I look at 8 goes into 60 7 times. So then 80 goes into 600 the same 7 times. I get a, let's make that black. So I get a 40, and I bring down a 0. 80 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 80 is 400. Again, I misspoke there. 80 goes into 400 5 times. And then we get a 0 when we subtract. So we have 27/80. 27/80 is the same as 3,375 10,000ths. It's a big decimal, but it's not too hard. It's the same thing that we've been doing all along. Okay. The next one, again, if you want to pause and go back, look at it again, feel free. 247/50. Well, I know 50 times 2 is 100, so I'm going the equivalent fraction route. So 50 times 2 is 100. I'm going to multiply my denominator by, I need to multiply my numerator by 247. I'll go off to the side. 247 times 2. 2 times 7 is 14. Carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. So 494 hundredths. Okay? And then my decimal point, tenths, hundredths, that's where my decimal is going to end. So just write your numerator starting in this point and work backwards. 4, 9, and then on the other side of the decimal point, 4. 4 and 94 hundredths is the same as 247 fiftieths. Okay, so there's the first three, and now I'm going to move on to the word problems. Okay, a photo is 5 7/8 inches long. Write the photo's length as a decimal. So 5 7/8. Two things you can do. We know it's 5 as a whole number, and so we know our decimal is going to be 5 point something. 5 point what? Well, that point what is whatever the 7/8 equals as a decimal. Okay, so works all the time. 7 divided by 8. 0, 0. Bring my decimal point up to the line. 8 goes into 70? No. 8 goes into 700? Yes. And it goes 8 times. 64. And I get 6. Bring down to 0. 8 goes into 60. And you might notice that this eighths family, they terminate. They're terminating decimal. So one thing about this, get this 4, bring down my next 0. One thing about this eighths family is that we could probably learn them. They're probably some fractions and decimal equivalents that would be very useful to know. So our 7/8, our fraction piece, is 875 thousandths. We already know our whole number piece is 5, so it's 5 and 875 thousandths of an inch. Okay, that's how long the photo is. So these eighths and 7/8 aren't bad decimals to know, to have memorized. You already know 2/8 because 2/8 equals 1/4, and 1/4 equals a quarter, which is as money as 25 cents. And then 6/8 you know also, because that equals 3/4 or 3/4, which is money we know is 75 cents. So we know some of the eighths. We know 4/8 because 4/8 equals a half, and a half as a decimal is 0.5. So we know some of our eighths already. It's not a bad thing to have memorized all of them. And obviously 8/8 is a 1, and 0/8 is 0. So enough of the eighths family. Moving on to the last one. A basketball player made 16 shots out of 30 attempts. So the person made 16 shots out of 30. I'm going to write the fraction as a decimal. I intentionally skipped over a line here because a lot of us may not have noticed it. We would have said, oh, we're doing fractions as decimals again, and you would have skipped over this. It says first thing it says to do is write it in simplest form. Even if you didn't read that line, you should look at 16/30ths. Note that they're both even. Note that they're both divisible by 2. And you would get 8/15. Now, we can do our division. 8/15, decimal point, add on some zeros. 15 goes into 80. It goes into 64 times. It means it goes into 75 5 times. 5 times 15 is 75. Subtract 5, bring down the 0. 5 goes into 50. 3 times 45. Subtract, get a 5, bring down a 0. 3 times 45. Subtract, get a 5, bring down another 0. So I see right away that my remainder of 5 repeats. Therefore, my decimal will repeat. Therefore, we would say that the basketball player made 0.53 repeating shots. Okay, and we could express this as another number. We can express it as a percent, and we will when we get there. Just to show you, it would be 53.3%, and actually that 0.3 will repeat. But that's it. There's 5 more examples. If you want to see some more, I'd be more than happy to go over some more on Thursday or in class the next time that we meet. But I've given you now 10 questions, 10 sample questions that we've gone over on changing fractions to decimals. And of course I move my picture and then I freeze, so I'm moving it out. And that's the end of the video. Oh, there, now you can see me. And don't look like I fell asleep. Now I do. Alright, so I'm going to stop the video.